Hello everybody, welcome back to the workbench. Today I'm going to be doing a short video on how I apply graffiti to rail cars. I had a request to do that via my BlueSky channel, which I'll link at the end. I've been posting quite regularly my weathering projects and my graffitiing projects on there, and I had a request to do a short video on how I do it. So this is it. This is very much a video of how I do it. It's not a tutorial on how to do it. There's plenty of people more experienced and more advanced than I am at doing this, so I'm sure putting YouTube videos out about this topic, but I just wanted to show how I do it. I'm going to be using a technique that I think is probably quite useful for people who are just starting out doing graffiti and that sort of thing. It's a very basic, very cheap, very easy, and I feel quite effective way of applying a bit of characterful graffiti to a rail car. Now I know not everybody likes graffiti, and I kind of understand that, although it is part of the railroading scene in America and in the UK as well, and across Europe, to be honest. It's a big part of that scene. It's a lot of rail cars have graffiti on, and I think it just adds a little bit of character. If you've got a train of plastics hoppers such as these, plain grey hoppers, then the graffiti just adds a bit of extra interest to that, particularly if it's nice graffiti. So what I'm doing today, what I do, I should say right at the start, I am not modelling specific rail cars. For what I want for my railway at the moment is something that looks authentic enough that I'm satisfied with it, but I'm not worried about particularly making specific models of specific rail cars. So today I'm going to do, for this video, it's going to be quite a simple one. I've found this photo of a 4-bay plastics hopper, railroadpicturearchives.net, which was down for a while. It's now back up and running, which is absolutely fantastic. It's running a lot quicker now than it used to. Such a valuable resource. I'll link in the notes. So yeah, this is the hopper that I'm doing. Quite a simple bit of red graffiti, ICH. I think this is Itch. It's a graffiti artist whose work appears quite frequently if you do a Google search for graffitied railcars. I think they've done quite big mural types before. So this is quite a short one, and I'm keeping this simple just for the purpose of this video. This isn't the car I'm modelling. As I say, I haven't got the decals that I'd need to put all the script on the side. So this is, on this hopper, is just to create something that looks authentic and I can run, and I don't think anyone's going to notice the difference, to be quite honest, unless I tell you. So this is what I'm going to be doing, and I've had quite frequently put graffiti on. There's a decision about to have a look at and see whether the graffiti is on top of or underneath the weathering, because obviously the cars probably will have run for quite a while before the graffiti has been applied to them, but also run after the graffiti is on. So in this case, there's quite a bit of wear on the bring that up, quite a bit of wear on the red paint that's on there, and even the black looks a bit rough in places. So I'll try and recreate that to a certain extent. Certainly I hope to be able to recreate the wear on the red paint, but what I'm going to do is I'm not going to weather the car. I'm going to put the graffiti on because this is worn, and then I'll weather the car afterwards, and then that will hopefully blend the graffiti into the car a bit more and just soften the edges, soften it down, and make it appear as a whole. What I did that with this one, which is my freelance graffiti. I personally I think graffiti looks better if it's authentic, so I like to copy existing graffiti, but on this one I did freelance because this was something that I put together with the help of my daughter. So I mentioned it in a previous video. But what I did, when I'd originally painted it, these looked quite bright and stark, and it looked like some paint on the side of a car. Once I weathered it down, it really blended it in, and it's made a massive difference having put the weathering on it. This weathering I copied off a car that had no graffiti, and then yeah, I just put the weathering over the top of the graffiti, and I think it's turned out quite nicely. I'm quite pleased with how it's turned out. So that's what I'm doing. This car I had I did a bit of weathering and some graffiti on this previously, which at the time I was quite happy with. I've developed my skills quite a bit since then, and I hauled it out the other day because I was going to do some graffiti on the other side, and I looked at what I put on there and I was not happy. So I've stripped it off with IPA, and you have to bear in mind you can do that. If it goes wrong, get the IPA out, strip it off. If you decide you don't like it, get the IPA out, strip it off. In this case, as I say, I was originally quite happy with it. I looked at it before starting this project, and I just, it was terrible. So it's come off. It took me an hour, maybe one evening, to take it all off, and I've now got a blank canvas to start again. This has been stripped and cleaned with IPA, so it's hopefully a reasonable surface to work off. And you can put a brief spray of matte varnish over just to give the paint an extra bit of grip if you want. What I'm going to be using for this, dead simple. One pencil sharpener, pencil sharp, and then I've got acrylic pens. I'm using obviously the red, white and black to recreate this graffiti. So you can do this, you don't need, you know, there's people produce some absolutely fantastic work using airbrushes. They recreate the paint can effect amazingly using an airbrush or using a paintbrush even. I don't have the artistic skills to do this using an airbrush. I have done some using the paintbrush, and that is quite a nice technique, quite relaxing to sit and do it. But for something as simple as this, I think these acrylic pens will produce a perfectly good job. The good thing with these is as well, they come off nice and easily with the IPA. With this car, I've weathered using oils, so acrylics for the graffiti, oils for the weathering. The oils don't wash the acrylics off, so you can work over the top in quite a bit of safety. I did create a bit of wear on this by rubbing the graffiti and rubbing the weathering and just taking a bit of the edge off the acrylic paint. It wasn't washing off, it was more of a mechanical effect. But again, as I say, happy with how that one turned out. And I should be able to do the same effect on this car where the red paint's worn. So yeah, without further ado, that's the materials I'm using. That's the car. One word on the car. These are, I think, Walther's models, and they're the cheap ones. And I discovered doing this, when I was doing the weathering, I thought I'd managed to get a fingerprint on the side. So I spent a bit of a while by cleaning. I was really pleased how the weathering was. Cleaned a big chunk of it off. Discovered it wasn't a fingerprint. It was the paint is absolutely awful on these cars. In an ideal world, I'd be using a nice, expensive, decent car. But in the world I'm in, I've bought these off eBay. They're what I've got. I can't really afford to spend the money on massively expensive ones, so I'm running with these. Probably would benefit from being completely stripped and resprayed, but for what I'm doing, I don't think it's worth it. They'll be happy running my layout once they're painted. So we'll crack on. We'll get some graffiti on this hopper. So now with the pencil, I'm just going to draw in the initial lines that the red paint will go on. It actually starts almost under the number at this end. I'll sketch it in, see how it looks. Okay, that's the lettering sketched in, hopefully visible there. Not dramatically accurate at the moment, but the acrylic pen will cover the pencil. It's just to give me a guide as to what to work to. Like I say, if I'm not happy with it, I can get the IPA, wipe it off, and we can start again. So now I'm going to pop the first coat. These acrylic pens, pretty good, but to get a decent covering, a couple of thin coats are probably better than trying to get it all on in one go. So I'll pop the red on this. We'll have a look, see how it looks. Like I say, if it doesn't work out, we can rub it over with IPA and start again. Okay, there we are. That's the initial coat of red on there. It's a little bit awkward doing it at the angle. I'm trying not to get in front of the camera. Obviously, I'd normally have this directly in front of me and we're working over the top of it, which won't work with filming it. So it's a little bit awkward. But that's the first coat done. I might put a second coat on, then we'll have another look at it, and then I'll get the white outside put round. I'm reasonably happy with how that's come out. I'm slightly, the gap between the C and the H looks quite large, but I think once that's white and it's got the little black line in the centre, once we've got the white the white in there, hopefully that will just make that gap look a little bit less obvious. But yeah, I'm reasonably happy with how that's turned out at the moment so far. I'm happy with the scale of it. Once I do the white, I might just make some slight adjustments to the size of where the red is, but we'll do that as I put the white on. So yeah, I'll get that on and bring it back once that's done and show you how it's come out. Okay, that's the first coat of white on. It's looking a bit thin at the moment, but a second running over will hopefully just give it a bit more definition. Then we'll pop the black line around the edge. I am going to put a second coat on the red in a couple of places. I'm not dramatically worried if it's a little bit thick, the red, because of the wear on the paint on the original, so hopefully I can just bring it back a bit when I try and create that. But it's not a 100% accurate representation at the moment of what's on here, but I'm reasonably happy with it. I think it'll do. I think it'll look fine. Should never say it'll do, but I think it'll look fine running on the layout. I think it'll look like a reasonably authentic piece of graffiti. So right, next step, another coat of white. And then I'll go around the edge with the black. This stuff does dry relatively quickly, so I'll be able to put my second coat of white on hopefully in a couple of minutes. Okay, that's second coat of white on. I made a bit of a mistake there. I recharged the pen, I gave it a shake, and it was just, the paint was a bit thin. I pressed, with these you press the nib down to get the paint flowing, and I overpressed it and I've got quite a lot of paint on the nib. I've tried to get it out. I have a bit of paper on the bench, tried to get some of the paint off on there, but it's maybe gone a bit thick, so we'll have a look. I'll let that dry and have a look and see how it looks. I think if it is a little thick here, I'll probably finish this job anyway for the sake of filming this. It's, you know, it's looking okay from a viewing distance, and then if it is too bad, what I might do is just strip it and do it again. But we'll see how it looks. It does tend to level out a bit. I'll just sit the car up flat. I found when I did the last one, I thought I'd got it a bit thick in places, but once it settled and dried, it had leveled to a certain extent and was it was looking okay. So I'll just leave that to dry for a minute. And as that dries, I'm just looking at it now. It's, I don't know how easy it's going to be able to see on the camera that will stay in focus, but it's actually drying quite smooth and level. The red was tempting whether I was going to have to put another coat on, but given that it's going to be sort of worn and weathered anyway, I don't think it's really going to be necessary. I think I've got enough on there, and the white is, as it dries, it's settling down quite nicely. So I'll give that another couple of minutes to dry, and then, well, I'll give that another sort of 15 minutes to dry maybe. It does dry quick, and then we'll put the black line on the outside. On the original, the black line is actually not particularly well defined. It's got some smudges and rough edges on it. I think what I might do is see if I can recreate that after it's on, either by just rubbing it with a cotton bud or a Q-tip after it's immediately on, or by coming back later with just a very gentle diluted IPA and just see if I can just loosen the paint a bit and smudge it very slightly. So yeah, that's where we are with that. We'll just give that a minute to dry, and then we'll put the black line on the outside. Right, we'll get the black line put around the outsides of the white. Again, apologies if I'm leaning in front of the camera. It's quite difficult with the sill at the bottom where it goes around the corner to get the pen in there. This is where a paintbrush would be a better option, I think, but I want to keep it simple and use the pens. They're nice and cheap, easy to use. Okay, with the black line done, that's pretty much finished. There's a couple of little areas I need to go over. Where is it? I've smudged a bit of red just at the edge of the C here, and at the top there I just need to go over that with a bit of white, but that'll cover it nice and easily. Perhaps give it a little bit of scrape with a cocktail stick or toothpick, just to take some of the red off there, and then the white paint will cover that up. But it's not going to be a prize winning model. It's not a 100% accurate rendition of this, but I'm happy with how it looks, and I think, you know, at the moment it looks a bit stark and clean on here. Once the car's weathered down and the weatherings run over the top of the graffiti, we've got that kind of blended in. There's quite a few lines, well, the joint lines on the car obviously tend to attract the dirt, so that will we'll run that down, and that will go over the top of the graffiti as well in a few places, give it a bit of wear, and hopefully that will look alright. So the paint's now dried. and it's all looking rather clean and fresh. I'm happy with how that's turned out. I think it's worked out nicely compared to the image of the graffiti that I was copying, and it does look a little bit stark and clean on the car as it stands at the moment, but once it's weathered, I'll fade down the text a bit, fade down the graffiti a bit, and then we'll get the dirt over the top of the car. But for the purpose of this video, that is done. As I say, it's a very basic method of doing graffiti. I hope you see it doesn't involve any special techniques or any particular skill. It's just a case of finding a decent image and getting on with it. And like I say, if you make an error, you can, or you're not happy with how it turns out, you can get IPA, give it a quick rub over, and it's gone. I'm going to weather the car with oils. I think I may have said at the start that I can you can run the oils over the top of the acrylic paints, and they'll have the effect of fading it down and weathering it without rubbing it off. So there's a few bits I need to do to the car itself. A couple of the stirrups are broken, and I also want to detail it a bit. I'm going to try and open out the platforms at the end. They're currently filled in. Obviously, as I say, it's quite a cheap model, so there's a few bits I want to try and do to just improve it a bit. I need to clean up and repaint the trucks. They were previously weathered, but they're really not looking very good. So there you go. That will be the subject. Finishing this car will be the subject of a future video, but in terms of this little introduction to how I do basic graffiti, I hope that's been interesting and useful. The links to the pens that I used will be in the video description. If you've made it this far, as ever, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you at the next video.